The Detroit Pistons forced Game 7, and the San Antonio Spurs close out the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they're in a collision course to take on the OKC Thunder. Can they get past them? We're going to talk about it all and more in today's Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On NBA Game Night, where it's every game, every night. I'm Haize, one of the hosts of Locked On Bulls, and I'm joined, as I am every Friday night, by Swipa, one of the hosts of Locked On Nuggets. We're going to get into everything for today. We do got to tell you guys that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Swipa, let's start with the first game that went down today, and that is the Detroit Pistons. They get by the Cleveland Cavaliers in this game, 115-94. They're going to force Game 7. This is the only series left to be decided in the playoffs, but they get a big victory here. How you feeling tonight, Swipa?
I feel a lot of different ways. I'm curious kind of what we're going to hear, I think, from some of the Detroit Pistons people, because I think there's a lot to get into here, man. I have been obviously watching the same playoffs everybody else is watching with Jalen Duren, and I think today was actually the best game Jalen Duren has played this entire playoff. I know Game 7 versus Orlando, he had 15 and 15, but that game was such a blowout. The leverage wasn't there. Today was a day where they needed Jalen, I think, to set the intensity for the team. He was a beast on the board. He was good. He actually had a nice post game that was working today. He had 15 and 11. This was a really bad Cade Cunningham game from like a scoring standpoint. Had 7 turnovers. He only had 21 points, but he was 7 of 19 from the field. So they didn't actually get a whole lot of offense today from some of the ones you were usually expecting. Tobias Harris has been, I think, really good in stretches for this playoff. He only had 6 points today. But the people that saved today, it was Duncan Robinson at 14 points, made 4 threes, huge plays. Dennis Jenkins had 15. He had some huge plays. But y'all, this is going to be funny. So there's an account on Twitter that basically has been tracking the ESPN net points of like who the best players in the playoffs have been. And so what he did is he eliminated the minutes threshold to try to just find out, okay, no minute parameter, who's been like the best 2 or 3 players in the NBA. And Haize, would you know that no minutes, ESPN's net analytics, B-ball Paul Reed has been the best player in the playoffs. He has been going insane. 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist. He has been a nightmarish defender in this series in particular. He's been very good offensively. He's been everywhere on the board. And I think the thing that's made him so good is that he is so athletic that he just knows how to use his quick twitch to get up and off the ground quickly. He has really good touch as well. He's done everything that this team has needed him to do. And mind you, this playoffs, they have a plus 14 net rating with him on the court, with a 115 offensive rating, which is more than good enough, but a 101 defensive rating over the course of this entire playoff run. He deserves so much credit for being this, again, backup big who's made several transitions over the course of his career to being a legitimately great playoff rotation player. And really, even like Isaiah Stewart, you would think would be the backup big that you would want to play in this moment. And they have 3 centers they trust. Paul Reed has absolutely been such an anchor for this team. And Haize, I literally could not tell the story about why Detroit got back into this series down 3-2 and why they were able to win Game 6 without directly talking about Paul Reed and him maybe being the best player on the floor for the Pistons today.
I mean, listen, the Pistons are going to need contributions from each and every player to get to this point and get past the Cavs, and Paul Reed has definitely played his role. Let's hear from the host of Locked On Pistons, Cade Cunningham, on this one and how he felt about this one tonight.
host of the Locked On Pistons podcast, Ku Keel here. You'll see that there's a lot of fans behind over in that section by where the Pistons bench were. JP Bickerstaff after the game was over there hyping them up like it was a WWE game. Those fans basically ambushed Cade as he was walking by. They were going crazy. And just now, right before I started recording, Jalen Duren walked by, and he was telling them, let's go, we are here. We're going back to Detroit, and they were losing their minds. The Detroit Pistons finally got a performance from Jalen Duren like the one we've seen all year from him, an all-star performance, an all-NBA performance, and it resulted in the Detroit Pistons winning by 20-plus points. Marcus Sasser was huge in this game. Cade was huge in this game. Asar was amazing in the minutes he did get to play until the refs decided to take him out because they were mad about the last game and how they complained about the foul call. But despite all of that, the Cleveland Cavaliers would not give up. They would not allow the Pistons to pull away, but it took Jalen Duren until at the end of this game, helping close them out with multiple big-time plays. Round one, the Pistons were left for dead, down 3-1, and they forced Game 7 in Detroit and won that one. Down 3-2, all these people were saying it's over with. No, they blew this lead. They choked the last game. They've disappointed. This one's over. We're going back to Detroit again. We'll see you guys in Detroit, Cleveland.
In the second half of this game, Detroit outscores them 61-43 in the second half of this game. That's how they created that separation in this game. The Cleveland Cavaliers, despite big performances from James Harden, who continues, despite me saying how bad he can be as series goes on, he's put together some nice few games here. Donovan Mitchell only with 18 points, 6 of 20 from the field today. When you look at what was the biggest thing to hold the Cavs back today, Swiper, what are you saying here, man?
Look, Donovan Mitchell lives in this very interesting place where I think a lot of people like him, but not many people rate him as like a great player, superstar. And so he kind of gets to skate a little bit. And I just got to be honest, man, I've not been impressed with Donovan Mitchell for a majority of this playoff run. Now, I do want to be fair to him. Like, he's obviously seeing, some pretty good defenses, and he played versus Toronto in the first round, and then very sketchy performance, and now he's playing versus Detroit. So I want to continue to give credence to like that stuff matters. But D Mitch objectively, Haize, today was just simply abysmal, and it was so bad that there are legitimately people on the internet that are like, covering this game, covering the sport, that work in media, that said they might have been better benching him today. Now, obviously, you're not going to do that, because you can't do that to your best player. You're quote unquote supposed to be best player. But hey, Donovan Mitchell was a minus 25 today.
It was terrible.
A minus 25 in this game. And like, they were better when he wasn't on the floor. And it's his shot selection. It's his pace. It's his timing. There's so many things that he is just not doing to the level that you want them to do. Today, they had a 128 defensive rating when he was on the floor with a 94 offensive rating. And in the 10 minutes and 48 seconds that he sat, they had a plus 28 net rating. Now, again, like, that's obviously very low leverage minutes. But what I'm trying to communicate in this game, the person that actually was really the driving force to them, Evan Mobley had, I think, some really good stretch in this game. So definitely want to give him credit. But it was James Harden. Like, James Harden was making like a big difference for this team when he was on the floor. Now, it got a little messy down the stretch of the game, but I just think you need your best player, who is going to make second team All-NBA this year. You need him to be better. You need him to play better versus this kind of team, especially if Cade Cunningham is going to be this bad and you got a chance to close the series out. You got to get it done. And Haize, I think he had a really good game 3 and game 4. And 35 points and 43 points in both those games, shot 54% from the field and 50% from the field. So you don't want to take any of that away. I don't think he played well in game 1. I don't think he played well in game 2. And I don't think he played well in game 5. And I definitely didn't play well in game 6. So it's like, you got a chance to move on, to get to to the conference finals. And your best player just kind of does a no-show. And now you got to go back to Detroit. And Cade is going to be ready. That building is going to be rocking. They do not want to go home. And the fact that you had a stinker, maybe the worst game of the playoffs from Cade Cunningham, and you lost. And on top of that, I think Detroit has found something. They believe that with B-Ball Paul, like, they have a better matchup at the center position than you do with Evan Mobley or with Jared Allen. And then we got Jalen Duren, obviously, who had a good game. Maybe he gets even more confident. So what if Duncan Robinson is all of a sudden he's feeling hot, he's feeling good? What if Dennis Jenkins, Tobias Harris has a normal game? He scores 18 to 21 points on good efficiency. And then now you're stuck in a rut. I just think these games matter so much. And obviously, I think the biggest culprit today was D. Mitch. They had a lot of breakdowns, but D. Mitch especially. Harden wasn't great. But, man, you can't be a second-team All-NBA player of this caliber, and then you just kind of skate. You just can't do it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. In that case, they're going to need much better from him if they're going to want to be able to pull out of this Game 7 and move on and take on the New York Knicks. We'll see. Before we get out of this segment, Game 7, Swiper, who's your prediction? Does Detroit win or do the Cleveland Cavaliers come out of this?
Yeah, that's tough, man. I'm going to roll with Detroit. I thought, I did pick Cleveland to win this series. I just thought that, like, obviously the Magic series with Detroit and then Franz going down, Cleveland obviously having some experience on their side. I was thinking that this could be something they could do. But it's going to be back home, man. And I don't trust D. Mitch and I don't trust James Harden. I don't trust Evan Mobley in them. I just don't. You know what I mean? So we're going to find out. But I would be leaning Detroit in Game 7, and I think that's going to be a spectacular game.
We shall see. We shall see. Next up, we're going to talk about the Spurs eliminating the Minnesota Timberwolves right on the other side of this. But before we get into that, we got to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that is Game Time. Nothing like playoff basketball live. The intensity, the crowd, the rivalries, and it's a completely different experience when you're in the building. The NBA playoffs are where unforgettable moments happen, and being there in person just hits different. Game Time makes it incredibly easy to find tickets, even for those hard-to-get playoff games, in just a few taps. And with the Game Time guarantee, you're getting 100% authentic tickets on time at the best price. Game Time makes it easy to find great seats in just a couple of minutes. The Seat View feature is a game changer too. You can actually see your view and what it will look like before you buy. And the zone deals are great if you're trying to save. If you pick the section, Game picks the seats, and you still get a great deal. Plus, with the lowest price guarantee and ticket coverage, you can feel confident every time you're buying tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Also got to talk to you guys about another one of our sponsors, and that is DoorDash. Postseason is heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. And with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snack stock, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights where your team stresses you out. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need dessert now. If the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure you show up prepared. Snacks, cups, and even a phone charger for the friend that's always at 2%. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. It's snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your door. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. More Locked On Bulls, more Locked On NBA coming up next. All right, Swiper, the San Antonio Spurs, they get a win here to close out the series, 139-109. The Spurs in this one just controlled this game. Basically, there was a brief time where it closed in the second quarter of this game, but coming out of halftime, the Spurs came out on fire. They never looked back in this one. A 30-point victory in the closeout game for the San Antonio Spurs. We're going to talk about what this means for them going into the next series, the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder. But how'd you feel about this victory by the Spurs here?
Yeah, man. Now, a lot of people know that, if you know me, that I've been extremely high on several players on this roster for several years now. So, for me, this is like a coming out party. You know what I mean? Like, I love Devin Vassell. Like, I just thought he was just such a good player, and he just does a lot of really good things. And I love him out of Florida State. Stephon Castles was one of my guys before the draft, out of UConn. I thought he was really good. Julian Champagnie has just grown on me tremendously, man. He's been crazy in these playoffs. Like, he just makes so many winning plays for them. And obviously, Victor Wembanyama, man, he's made of everything that's right, I think, with competitiveness and wanting to be the best and wanting to be a certain caliber player. De'Aaron Fox, who hasn't had a great playoff run, this might have been his best game, maybe his top 2 game at least of the NBA playoffs so far. He had 21 points and 9 assists and had a 8 of 10 from the field. It was also like uber efficient as well. But, brother, today, man, Stephon Castle was the star of the show. 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists for Stephon. 11 of 16 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3. He had 3 threes made in the first quarter as well. And then all in all, he was a plus 28 in this game. And his defensive intensity, his activity, all that stuff matters, man. And he made one of the passes of the playoffs to Victor Wembanyama where he basically beat a double team. He found Victor really cutting to the basket in a crazy angle, had to loop the pass around, and Victor, because he's 12 feet tall, was able to grab the ball, get underneath the backboard, and still made the layup. Like, it was just a crazy freak play. But I said this earlier, Haize, I just think that Dylan Harper, Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, Victor Wembanyama, that to me is like the future. Like, that is the future. And I didn't even say Dylan Harper. Like,
yeah,
they
led them in scoring off the bench with 15 points. He's casually, by the way, going 6-8 from the field.
Bro, he is an engine, bro. They have so many good players. I love Haize, love watching the Spurs. This is the complete opposite, Haize, because I grew up, Tim Duncan and, David Robinson and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker. I couldn't stand watching the Spurs when I was a kid. Hey, I could not stand it. That Detroit Pistons series they played in the NBA Finals.
That was one of the most boring final series I
couldn't stand it. So just imagine, 20 years later, here we are, and it's like, man, this was actually one of the funnest teams in the league. And obviously they have a dynasty they're rebuilding now. So I thought today was a great game, man. Minnesota, obviously we'll get to them in a minute, but they just let Minnesota know, even in our first playoff run, there are levels, and we are that much better than you. We have guards that can get to it. We got wings that can get to it. We got two centers that we trust. Obviously, one of them might be the best player in the world. And Haize, I want to say this really quickly too. Victor Wembanyama, this playoff run, 10 games so far, 20 points per game, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 blocks. He's shooting 63% from 2, 34% from 3, 85% from the free throw line, a 65 true shooting. He's a total over 10 games, a plus 126 with a plus 21.4 net rating. He is the most impactful player in the NBA already, dog.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at Wemby, like it's the fact that he does it on both sides of the ball. This series, this playoff run as a whole, you could see he's learned how to deal with the physicality differently as the playoffs went on. There were still times in the regular season where you were able to put wings on Wemby and kind of force him out the paint. And you saw that a little bit in that opening series against the Portland Trailblazers, but it's like he recognized very early on, no, we're not about to let that happen in the playoffs. The depth of this Spurs team, the different looks that this team could throw at you no matter what. We're going to get into that in the next series because I think that's going to be a really big key. Just the series over the Wolves. The Wolves have been a team the last 2 years in the Western Conference Finals. You can never count them out in the playoffs, but the Spurs seem like they had an answer for everything the Minnesota Timberwolves did. And honestly, if it wasn't for that game where, Wemby got ejected early on in this game, it may not have even went 6 games. The Spurs, you're typically trained to think a young team does not get this done, is not able to adjust the way that the Spurs have over this playoff series. I think it's gotten them ready. They've already had regular season success against the OKC Thunder. You cannot count out the Spurs team, but we'll get on that more in a second, right? We got to talk about what this means for the Minnesota Timberwolves because, this has been a team that hasn't made big changes on their roster. They did make some changes at the trade deadline, getting in Ayo Dosunmu, but I think they're going to be faced with some hard, tough questions this offseason. But let's go over to the host of Locked On Wolves here.
Timberwolves fall in Game 6. The season is over. They lose in the series, 4-2 to the Spurs. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the daily Locked On Wolves podcast, and this thing was profoundly disappointing. It was ugly. The Timberwolves trailed by as many as 29 points in the first half of this game. They did fight back at the end of the second quarter, actually got to within 13 at halftime, but then perhaps predictably, the Spurs came out of the locker room ready to go, playing hard. The Timberwolves were not. The Spurs could smell the conference finals. The Timberwolves, the interest level apparently wasn't there in the third quarter. The Wolves immediately fell back down by over 20. The lead ballooned to over 30 for the Spurs, and Chris Finch pulled the plug with about 8 minutes left in the game. The story of this one was the Spurs hitting open shots early. The Wolves gave them open threes. The Spurs made them. Then when the Timberwolves put pressure on the ball and extended their defense, the Spurs got into the paint. They beat the Wolves off the dribble. Minnesota's offense, Minnesota missed open shots. The Spurs made them. And effort was the thing that led to those open shots. That was the biggest problem, which is damning in the final game of the year for the Wolves.
Final game there for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Swipa, what's next for the Wolves, man?
So I'm looking at their cap sheet for next year. So on the books currently, they have Anthony Edwards at $48 million. That's obviously he's an underpay for what he does. Rudy Gobert's at 36. He was their best player in the first round. Julius Randle is the one. So Julius Randle is going to be scheduled to make $33 million, and then he has a player option for $35 million for next year. And I just want people to know this, that Julius Randle in this playoff run was very egregious. He averaged 16 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. But y'all, he shot 43% from 2, 24% from 3, had a 47.9 true shooting, which I think relative to the rest of the NBA in the playoff, I think that's going to be a -8, -9 efficiency, which is horrific, which is basically like, one of the worst players in the playoffs. That's kind of what that number is going to look like. Also this year in the playoffs, the Wolves were a -3 when he sat. They were a -67 when Julius Randle was on the floor in both series versus Denver and versus the Spurs. This is going to be a conundrum because now they have to make decisions about their roster. Because Naz Reid is guaranteed to make $23 million next year. Jaden McDaniels is guaranteed to make $26 million next year. Dante DiVincenzo off an Achilles injury, may miss the entire season. It's going to be at $12 million. They got Behringer at 4, Terrence Shannon Jr. obviously on a rookie deal, and then Julian Phillips. But they have to figure out. Ayo Dosunmu is probably going to command anywhere between $14 to $20 million a year. Are they going to pay him? Bones Highland, do you want to resign him for a backup guard? Jalen Clark needs new money. Mike Conley, do you let him go? Kyle Anderson, do you let him go? So you're starting to deduce here. Who are you going to prioritize with your money and your cap allocation is going to be the question of the summer, because it's not that they're in a bad position per se, but it's like if you make some wrong decisions with your roster and you don't add the right players, or then you get rid of the wrong players, all of a sudden you're looking at another downgrade like they did from Cat to Julius in the original trade this year. Or last year rather. So it's just going to be interesting, man. I don't think that they're cooked, but I am going to be very curious to see how the Minnesota Timberwolves, how they navigate this process and where they're going to allocate their money to this offseason.
Yeah, and I mean, you would think that they don't want to put themselves in the same situation with Ayo that they were with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, where they let him go because they're not willing to pay him, right? Like, Ayo's come into this roster and played really well for them. At times when they didn't have any Anthony Edwards, anybody else, he stood up and played very well for them and helped them win basketball games. So, like, they want to build this thing going forward, but at some point you have to realize that something has to change on your roster, and I think that's where the Wolves are right now. You pointed out the Julius Randle of it all. That's a place where they can try to make a change. At last year's playoffs, he had a great playoff run, not necessarily as strong this playoffs, but that is what it is. But yeah, I think the Wolves sit in a place where it's just they got to find answers to tough questions if they really want to get to the next step. And I don't know who survives that, who doesn't. You think there's any chance that Rudy Gobert is not on this roster next season?
Man, I'm just if they can find an upgrade, yeah, but Rudy has been so pivotal. I keep telling people that he's the most important player, and I know he comes with his deficiencies, and they don't even come close to getting out of that Denver series without Rudy, and they don't have a chance in the Western Conference without Rudy. So maybe they do, but like, who are you replacing him with? And like, are you going to get comparable value and impact to what he does for your team? Because he's the reason why your defense is able to be what it is at all. Now, offensively, you're going to suffer or whatever, but I don't know, man. Like, again, $36 million for a player that I think should be first-team All-NBA, who was one of my 3 DPOY candidates this year with Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama. I still think he's one of the 3 or 5 best defenders and most important, at the very least, defenders in the sport. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening to him, but he's 33 right now, or he'll be 30. He's 33 right now. He'll be 34 next year, and he has 2 years remaining on his deal. He has a player option for 38. So maybe that it is. Maybe it's like, hey, one of these teams around the league, like, look, we need an elite center that's going to be an anchor for us. We're willing to make a serious trade, and you can kind of see what happens from there.
We'll see what happens. Next up, we're going to preview Game 7, Spurs. I mean, not Game 7. The Western Conference Finals, the Spurs versus the OKC Thunder right after this. All right, and with that said, before we get into that, I got to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. It's a really easy app to navigate. It makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Also got to talk to you guys about another one of our sponsors, and that is Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, and location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. Here's the stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates, less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. More Locked On NBA coming up next. All right, Swiper, we're going into the Western Conference Finals. The Spurs get past the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do you have the Thunder have just dominated? They won that series against the Lakers on average of 19.8 points per game over the course of that series. The Spurs looked really good. They had some success in the regular season against the Thunder. Do you give the Spurs a chance to get by the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals?
Yeah, so this is really going to come down to how they're defending Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, how A.J. Mitchell is playing off of him. Is J-Dub going to be playing? Chet Holmgren, are you going to be able to maintain the kind of play you're playing in the playoff? Because he's been the best Thunder so far this playoff. He's averaging 19 points, 9 rebounds. He's shooting 70% from 2, 39% from 3 with 2 blocks a game and a steal a game. He's been phenomenal. And so the question is going to become, are you going to be able to maintain that versus Victor Wembanyama and Luke Kornet and obviously Julian Champagnie and the rest of them, Keldon Johnson? On the other end of this, do you have enough to be able to contend with the fact that Wemby is going to be a matchup nightmare? But also, are the Spurs, is your shot making going to hold up? Because you're going to need De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, those 3 especially. 2 of those 3 got to be good almost every single night. Then Devin Vassell, you got to be able to hit those shots, especially if they're going to load up in the paint and then they want to overdrive. And so you drive down to the basket and after they're collapsing and containing, you're rotating from corner to wing. You got to make those threes. Julian Champagnie, one of the great things that he does is he's a release, breaking in need of release. Like if you drive or you got like a container, you're getting a gap help or whatever else it is, he's a great player to throw into a strong side corner and be like, hey, we need to hit this 3 over here. They're going to have to do that. So OKC has the experience. They have the champion. They have the MVP. They have a player who's been there before. They have a team that's been there before. They got a coach that's been there before. This is Miss Johnson's first go-ahead, but they do have matchup advantages over OKC. So really it's going to be about game plan and execution. And then when you get into the fourth quarter, can you sustain your process? Can you match the physicality and set the tone yourself? Can, when Wemby sits down, you find enough to contend? Because when SGA sits is when they take off, because now they're playing uber aggressive and they're running in transition. Are you going to be able to contend with those non-SGA minutes? And how are you going to stagger Wemby in the middle of all that? How many minutes is Wemby going to be able to play in this series as well? All of those are questions for me, all of them. So this is going to be, I think, the matchup. This is going to be the series of the playoff. This might be the NBA championship. I got the Knicks coming out of the Eastern Conference, but I think that this series is probably going to be the preeminent point of NBA basketball this season.
This is going to be a great series. I think the depth of both teams already, like we've already seen both teams like adjust and adapt, especially what the OKC Thunder try to do defensively. That's going to be the chess match part of this. I'm just so, like, from a basketball X's and O's standpoint, I just can't wait to see the adjustments that are made as the series goes on. And I hope that the Spurs come into this one really ready and prepared. Like I said, like Wemby has answered every test, and Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet, what they like to do defensively in OKC, they're going to try to take away. They're going to try to nullify Wemby as much as they can offensively in this, which means they're going to have to, like, I don't think De'Aaron Fox can have a series like he had this series. Like, he's going to have to be very consistent. You're going to need Castle. You're going to need Harper. You're going to need all those guys to probably play the most consistent series that they have. Because if they have down games and they're able to nullify Wemby, that's what the OKC Thunder do. They're going to get out in transition. They're going to foul bait you. They're going to do everything that they can to get in your head. And that's something that we've seen teams get frustrated by, much less a younger team that this is their first real playoff run. So that's what makes this series so entertaining and such an exciting one to watch. I can't wait to break it down every day.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, man. I can't. That series is going to be just a nightmare. And I think that series is going to start on Monday or Tuesdays?
Monday, I believe.
Okay, yeah. It's going to be a party. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to break down that one. And we'll see how that goes on. But that's just another step to the NBA Finals. We're getting there sooner rather than later. Anything left, Swipe, before we get up out of here today, man?
Nah, man, great season for the Wolves. They were not the favorite in the Denver series. They were able to punch them in the mouth and get that done. I think the Cavaliers and Detroit Game 7 is going to be just a bloodbath. I can't wait to watch. I hope this is the legacy game for everybody. I hope James Harden plays well. Hope Mitchell plays well. I hope Cade plays well. I want to see the best of the best in that game. So I can't wait for me and maybe Danny to cover that on Sunday. It's going to be a great basketball game.
You get to cover Game 7 on Sunday. That's going to be a fun one. Definitely, you guys tune in, support Swiper on that one. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On NBA Game. Now you guys go to lockedonnba.supercast.com to sign up for the Everydayers Club. Locked On Game Night is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, and Fubo TV. We'll see you guys not bright and early. We'll see you guys next Friday night. Peace, y'all.